TitleMatchNetwork.com.
You're a huge wrestling fan growing up and stuff like that, and your was it your uncle?
Grandfather.
My grandfather?
My grandfather, the famous Popeye. Well, he was very over in my town.
Right. So you're a big wrestling fan growing up, and why don't you tell us about your background as far as being a fan first?
I met my grandfather. Was actually my stepmother's father. I met him. I think when I was 5 years old, and he was a guy that was in my dad's house trying to sell him Venetian blinds or something like that. I was looking, he was a very odd fellow. He was real big, and his hair was bleach blonde. He was all bent over and hunched, and he was talking like, "I give you a nice set of blinds." And I'm like, "Who is this weird guy?" To my dad's house, and he come downstairs, and I just happened to be flipping the channels, and Andre was on doing an interview with Vince. And he starts talking. He's like, "Oh, that's young fella. I was living in Montreal." And I'm like, "Why is this Venetian blind guy talking about this big giant with this big afro?" I had no idea what I was even watching. I had to be turning the channels when he walked in. And then he starts explaining to me, and my dad told me who he was. And it happened to be like a couple days before they were in the Garden. Andre were Killer Khan battling with Morocco. And he said, "Well, I could bring you to see this stuff." And I had no idea what it was. I just watched it for a minute. And he brought me to that first show. And I just, got in love with it immediately. And then he would bring me to the Garden every month. We'd go to the Holland Hotel first, where the office used to be. And we'd meet Arnold Skolin, and Gorilla Monsoon would bring us in through the back door and stuff. It was the coolest thing. And just the second I started meeting these guys, they were just like, larger than life. And it was just what I always wanted to do from that moment on.
Was he actually working on these shows too, or is he just getting
No, he retired in like 76 and then went on to do many. Every old guy I meet, they always have a different story. Hey, is your grandfather still selling countertops? Is he still making Venetian blinds? Is he still a postman? He always had some other kind of crazy thing. But after he retired, he worked with Angelo Saboldi, like building a couple rings and agenting on some like Jersey, like Sea Towns and stuff like that. But then he was, at this point, he was now selling microwaves and J.C. Penney.
Right.
But then he started hanging around, more and more. And he would just bring me to see those guys. Then I would start getting into the smaller like local shows by myself. Like I had met Larry Sharp and Pat Pastor to bring me in, and they let me put up the ring. And then some of the guys I think I was probably like 10. I remember like rolling around with Moondog Spot, which was just which is really strange.
Right. So actually, all right, what age did you say, all right, I want to actually do this? I want to be a wrestler.
From that very first show that I went to, I just knew that's what I wanted to do, even though it was the first show I was seeing, except for a half hour of it, on Channel 9 the week before. And that's what I wanted to do. But then me and Balls, who were friends since childhood,
right,
found out about these shows in Brooklyn that were being held. This guy, El Savage, had like a basement, but with a ceiling high enough barely for a ring. And the I don't know if it was actual. It's not Gleason's gym now, but there was something that said Gleason's gym. I don't know if the guy just happened to steal a sign and hang it up or something. But it was a building right by, like a train trestle went right by. And we were like 14, and we started taking the train. I would tell my mom sleeping over at John's house. John would say sleep over at my house. We'd take the train up there and then take 2 subways to get these buildings in Brooklyn. And they, for some reason, let us wrestle at 14 years old. I wrestled Black Gordman my first night there. Me and Balls wrestled the Headhunters the following week. And it was a real small little building, and they were playing Spanish music the whole time and doing commentary in Spanish while you were working. Frankie Williams was there. Jose Estrada was there a few times. And for some reason, they let us work, and they would give us like hot dogs, and then they would give us, they would like start giving us like shots and stuff like that. And we'd take the train back all hammered at 15. It was pretty,
So you had no.
What year was that? About late 87, 80s?
It was 7th and 8th grade, so 86.
86.
So you had no professional training at the time. It was just pretty much.
Well, and every weekend, I go to see my father on the weekends, and he'd take me to my grandfather's house, and we put the TV on, and we'd watch Georgia and Florida and all that stuff. And then he'd move the coffee table out of the room, the TV room, and we'd start, goofing around. He really didn't smarten me up at the time, but we would just be going through, holds, and he'd be, hitting me and stuff. And then my poor grandmother would have to come in, and he would go ahead and, grab me in a headlock, and I'd top wrist lock him up, and he'd be like, "Hon, look at my hair." My poor grandmother would have to walk around, so I'm pulling his hair, and he'd pull my hair, and then, he'd like go to shoot him off, and he's going to hold on to my hair and pull me back in. So I figured, well, I want to, impress him, show him I'm tough. So I go to shoot him off to the ropes of the wall next to the TV. And he's running, and he pulled me back in, and I wanted to show him how tough I was. So I came in hard, and I hit him right in the back. He just flips out, like, "You little fucker," starts forearming me on the back and stuff. And that was my training. And it was just kind of like on the job stuff after that.
Right. Now I remember seeing you back in, I think it was like 88 and 89 backstage at the Civic Center. You were setting up in the rings and all, right?
Yeah, well, Klondike Bill's another guy who my grandfather worked with in the Carolinas for a little while. And I got in contact with him, and he would, he'd let me come down for free, and put up the ring.
Right.
And then, and then he would let us, roll around in the afternoon and stuff like that. So that was, it was just cool because those guys seemed a lot cooler at the time. So it was like late '80s. We weren't allowed to go to the WWF shows anymore and do that kind of stuff because it became what it was.
Right.
So the NWA guys were a hell of a lot cooler. All the boys. I remember like Tracy Smothers. I think it was like '89 or something, right when he was there. And we did the ring in Wildwood, and Kevin Sullivan was trying to get me. Kevin Sullivan and Ricky Morton, who I didn't really even know Ricky yet, were trying to get me on the show because Big Josh or something was not showing up. I ended up not working, but they were all really cool guys trying to help me out. I remember talking to Tracy, and some kid walks in who was waiting for tickets. He's like, "Man, are you a wrestler?" Tracy's like, "Yeah, man, I'm wrestling. How you doing, kid?" And I goes, "Which one are you?" He goes, "Ultimate Warrior." And the guy's like, "Oh my God!" And he signed Ultimate Warrior and stuff. And the next day we're at the Meadowlands, and me and handsome Jimmy Shoulders were working out in the afternoon. And Tracy came out, and he was like, "Man, I got to work out with somebody. I want to try the spot." So me and Tracy worked out for about an hour in the jam-packed, empty Meadowlands at like 2 in the afternoon.
That's awesome. Who has been the most influential person in your career, in a good or bad way? Mentor maybe.
Well, Dr. Tom's been my mentor, like on a personal basis, who I get to like a guy that I admired and got to talk to and actually pick his brain like on a daily basis, But
what about influencing your style? Would it be Terry Funk?
Yeah, Terry Funk and Ric Flair, and I try to steal stuff from. Everybody steals stuff from everybody, and I just depending on who I'm working with and what mood I'm in, it's either you'll see a lot more Flair stuff or a lot more Terry Funk stuff.
Right.
And when you combine them together, hopefully it's Chris Candido stuff.
Are you surprised that Ric's still on top?
No, because
do you think it's time for him to move on the side? That's it.
When you see some of his matches now, and then you put his DVD in and see some of those matches, you think, well, it's not the same guy, which is obviously, you can't do the same stuff at 55 years old. But then you watch the rest of the show, and think, well, his match was still fucking better and got a better reaction than all these other fucking guys. Yeah. It's a shame now. Kurt Angle's so hurt that he's not going to be the same again. And besides, Benoit, who's that good, when you watch the show, Ric Flair 55 years old, and Shawn Michaels 190 pounds with a broken back, and they're the only two reasons to watch WWE TV anymore.
All right. Crazy. After there, you came back to the States, obviously, and where'd you go from there?
I think it was just stuff back around here, working for guys like in Jersey and New York, and then that Ed Zahn in Baltimore started doing some kind of stuff. So the Indies were, busy for then, being a kid and stuff, but it wasn't all. I started doing stuff for the Savaldis, that IWCCW stuff. One thing I did for them, we did TV in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, and so we were going to do a big angle. You're going to come out from underneath the ring to show you here for the first time. I was all right. So the intermission, and they put me in a garbage can on a thing with stuff from the ring and wheeled me out and rolled the can underneath the ring. I'm laying underneath there for quite a few hours. Oh. When I hear my cue, I come out, go to the top rope, and Tommy Dreamer was working with Lombardi. I went ahead and jumped on Tommy. Me and Lombardi beat him up, and then came in Duke the Pitbull Snyder, who I'm sure everybody's heard of. He went ahead and came in, and we set up our big tag match return. When the TV aired, no less than 5 years later, finally, I see it. I'm like, why is this on? I had never seen it previously, and it's all these years later, and they just show me all of a sudden out of the blue. They're showing the match. All of a sudden, Chris Candido's on the top rope. He must have come right out of the locker room. I spent 5 hours underneath the goddamn ring that day. So that was my Savaldi's experience. But there was a decent enough amount of indie work around here at the time.
Was Tammy still going to shows with you at the time?
Yeah, she hadn't started working yet. She was just going and still doing the Bill After picture stuff, right. and taping my matches, and she would get the or the 1980s boom box and the 2 VCRs and the TV, and somehow it was making me like tapes to send out and try and get work.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.